I can sit with any woman and tell her, oh my God, go for it, do it. You're smart. You should absolutely be doing that. When it comes to myself, I fill my head with doubt and I tell myself, don't, you can't, someone else can do it better. And that's not true.
Hi, I'm Sally Christensen, the founder and CEO of Argent, a women's workwear brand. And this is Work Friends, a podcast for those who take their work, but not always themselves, seriously.
Work Friends.
Hi, everyone. I wanted to take a moment to say thank you for listening to Work Friends. In just a few months, we've hosted conversations with women I deeply admire, and we're just getting started. I do have a favor to ask. If you could please take a minute right now to follow Work Friends on whatever platform you're listening on so you'll never miss an episode. And we'd especially love it if you could leave us a review or send an episode you've loved to a friend. Feel free to check out the show notes for more about Argent too. We're so excited to bring you more inspiring guests and candid conversations about careers you won't hear anywhere else. Your support of Work Friends and of Argent means everything to us. Thanks for listening. Today's guest is Molly McNearney, an Emmy-winning writer, producer, and actor. Most notably, Molly is the co-head writer and executive producer of Jimmy Kimmel Live, where she's worked for over 20 years, beginning as an assistant, then becoming a writer before landing in her current role over a decade ago. I was honored when Molly first agreed to be a part of Argent's Work Friends campaign. She was featured in one of our first campaigns, which has been 2021, because she is the epitome of what it means to be a powerhouse behind the scenes, and I admire her so much. In addition to being the genius who came up with iconic Kimmel segments like Mean Tweets, she's also written for the Emmy Awards and executive produced and written for the Oscars. While Molly's work has a massive audience, there's still quite a bit of mystery around what her role entails, and I can't wait to get into that today. Now on Work Friends, Molly McNearney. Hey, Molly.
Hi, Sally.
Do you step into this environment and take note of everything that's happening?
Yes, absolutely. Quietly judging everything.
We run a well-oiled machine. What could you possibly judge?
It's perfect.
I'm so excited that you're here.
I'm so excited to be here.
I was telling you before we started that I was rereading all of the things you've done in your career. It's bananas, and we're going to get into that. But we got to witness it firsthand last night. Gina, our editorial director, and I came to the show, and we got to see you in action.
I loved having you there.
Thank you for having us. It was so cool to see this entire team operating really smoothly to bring the show to life.
Yeah.
I feel like everyone could do it without even thinking, probably.
Yeah, I don't think of my job as interesting until someone then comes and watches me do it. I'm like, oh, I guess it is kind of interesting. I forget, I'm just doing my job.
I feel like that is something that happens for everyone. You get in your career and it becomes just your normal, but it's not normal for outsiders looking in. I think it's really cool to connect women across industries for this reason, to remind each other that what we're doing is very special and sexy.
Yeah, because I listen to other guests on your podcast and I think their careers are so much more fascinating and interesting. And I would love to shadow or, watch them for a day. And then having you there last night was a little surreal for me because I'm like, why? You want to be here? Okay, cool. If you think this is interesting, fine.
It was cool just looking over your shoulder and trying to suss out what you were doing. And you're both the head writer for Jimmy Kimmel, executive producing.
Mm-hmm.
For context, because I feel like it might get confusing if people don't know this, you are married to Jimmy to add complexity to the mix.
Yes. That's my third job title.
Yeah. But I feel like there is the executive producer title probably of all of them is the most elusive. Generally, it just means you kind of do everything. But before we get into anything, I want to do an icebreaker.
Okay.
Your biggest oh no moment this week.
Okay. My biggest oh no moment. I would say reading the news and trying to protect my mental health. A lot of cabinet picks have come out this week, and I find them to be gutting. And unfortunately, my job requires me not only to be very aware of the news every day, but then to make it digestible and hopefully somewhat funny for an audience at night. And so I feel like I'm now on that verge of waking up to 4 years of oh no's and getting myself into a mentally healthy place to consume it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it's a loaded oh no moment. I'm like, I left the steamer on at home.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I did paint my nails on in the car on the way over here. Is that a no moment?
Did you spill the bottle?
No, I did a pretty good job.
Yeah, you did a great job. Yeah, no, I mean, that's heavy. And I think you're at the center of this fight, I would say. Like, you have very publicly satirized a lot of what's happening, brought lightness and levity for those of us who are experiencing this and looking for outlets, because consuming the news is very hard. And we just decided to have 4 more years of that.
Yes.
It is a gift to so many people, but I imagine that it takes a toll on all of us, and you're offering some.
I mean, clearly it's taking a toll on me. You tried to start with a light question and I went right into dark. It's definitely all consuming, and it's tough to escape when it is part of I mean, I've talked to my therapist about it. I've talked to friends about it, and they say, just turn it off. But I can't. To do my job, I can't turn it off. So I'm getting emotional about it.
Yeah.
But it's tough. It's really challenging to consume it and then try to turn it around. But I do feel so privileged to have an opportunity to do that for people.
Yes.
To be a voice at the end of the day where other people are not feeling so great about things. Sorry, I did not expect to get emotional. Actually, you know what? I did expect to get emotional. When I was getting dressed for this, I put on one of the beautiful suits you make. And I have many, thanks to you, in my closet. And I put the pink one on. And then I thought, no, it's not matching my mood. And I went black. and then I had this fear that I was going to cry during this podcast. And if you don't know who I am and you're listening at home, you can at least know that you'll probably hear a stranger cry multiple times while you're in your car right now. So I was not expecting, was not expecting to cry, because I feel like we're all kind of carrying this weight right now.
Yeah.
And the point I was trying to get to with my career is that it's inescapable. Some people are very lucky to have careers that they can go to right now as an escape.
Yeah.
Mine is right in the heart of it.
It's also true activism. Like, it's so admirable what you and Jimmy do and the whole team, and it's necessary in moments like this.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to go in so many directions, but I do want to go back to your childhood and start there and hear about life in St. Louis.
I can cry about my childhood instead. I'm just kidding. I had a great childhood.
You did. And it shapes so much of, I think that it's foundational, right? But it shapes your values and who you are as a human. Yes. So I want to hear about just growing up in St. Louis, and also whether or not you had a career in mind.
Mm-hmm. I was born and raised in St. Louis in a conservative Catholic upbringing, Irish Catholic. Lots of cousins around, younger sister, older brother, went to church every Sunday. My parents were both hardworking people. My mom hung wallpaper. My dad was in real estate, kind of bounced around to several different careers, and low to middle income upbringing. My dad told me at a very young age, you can be whatever you want to be. Mm. And I fully believed him. I remember he told me I was going to be president of the United States someday. And I believed that. And I think that's a huge part of why I have confidence and why I take risks now as an adult, and why I got myself into mostly a male-dominated industry, because I was told at a very young age, you could be in the most male-dominated industry, which is politics. Mm-hmm. And my mom was always very encouraging. She worked when I was growing up, so I didn't have, a lot of tons of attention. My brother and sister and I would come from school and make our own snack and figure it out and run around the neighborhood. I learned independence pretty young, but always surrounded by lots of love and confidence building. My parents were always the coaches of my teams that I sucked at, not an athlete. Learned that at a young age, but kept playing every sport because I guess that's what you're supposed to do.
Gina and I were talking about this. There's shared DNA across the women that are wearing Argent. Mm. It's and this one comes up a lot, that we all had parents who didn't gender us. It was there were no gender norms, and my mom said, you need to be able to make a living on your own. That's your number one, and you can do anything. And I just had no awareness of male versus female.
Yeah, completely. I had to also work for everything that I had. Like,
Same.
I remember friends in high school turning 16, their parents would buy them cars, and my parents had absolutely no interest in doing that. They could have done it. They financially could have. Would have been tight, but they could have. But they taught me at a very young age, you work for your money. I was babysitting when I was 11 years old. I think about now, I was 11 years old, babysitting a family of 3 children. One was a 4-month-old baby. I was 11, and I'd put the kids to bed, and then my impulse, wherever this came from, was you don't just sit and watch TV now, you clean their house. Like, no one told me to do that.
Yeah.
I just didn't feel right getting paid to sit on someone's couch. So I was a weird babysitter because people would come home and their house would be spotless. But I didn't just do the first floor. I would go up to the second floor. I would vacuum the master bedroom. I would clean their bathroom. Like, I would go in and clean their shower. What kind of weirdo? Like, if I think about hiring a babysitter now, she was in my bathroom cleaning my bathtub. Like, what are you doing?
Totally. Well, yeah, okay, we would have been great friends.
Really?
Oh my God, my work ethic. I was like, all I want to do is work. Can anyone hire me? However, even at 21, I watched a family of 3 kids. The 4-month-old,
Yeah.
I had no business doing that at like 21. At
Right.
11?
11 years old. I know. And then I babysat. I spent all my weekends babysitting growing up and making, $1.50 an hour or something. It was nothing, but I would just save up that money. Then I started working at my first like real job when I was 16. I worked at Gap Kids and Baby Gap. And I did that. I worked at Gap for like 6 years and just saved up money. And then my dad kept like a ledger, and I'd give him money when I'd make it, and he'd put it in this pot towards my car. And I bought like a used Toyota Celica convertible with my brother. We shared it when I turned 16. And I had such joy. And my parents were right. I remember them saying, you'll understand it when you're older. Sure enough, I understand it now when I'm older. Like the value of that, working and owning something myself. And I've just been working ever since.
I feel like that's a little bit lost now because we get, and I'd love to hear your perspective on this, we'll get applicants starting at such a younger age for internships.
Yeah.
And my advice always is like, go wait tables or go work retail.
Yes.
And just hustle and learn people and work ethic.
Yes.
But we put so much pressure on this generation to have like the perfect resume when that's actually not at all what we're looking for.
I completely agree with that.
Because I have a very similar experience. I worked at Banana Republic. I was a host at a restaurant.
Yeah.
I was, or hostess, whatever. And then worked, waited tables for a ton of summers. But that's where I learned like people skills.
Me too. I was a
good and the
waitress,
bad.
then a bartender. Those things are so important. I think everyone should work in a restaurant and everyone should work in retail because
Same.
you learn about people, you learn about hard work, and also you learn how to treat those people when you're on the other side of it.
Agree.
And those were vital parts of my work ethic as well.
Were you thinking about when I grow up, I want to be?
I wanted to be Diane Sawyer. I wanted to be a broadcast journalist. And I would go around my neighborhood with a camcorder and make news videos. And that's all I wanted to do. I then interned when I was, I did a day shadowing a local St. Louis reporter. I think her name was Mary Phelan. I think I shadowed her, and I thought this is the dream job, to be a local news anchor. And after the end of the day, she pulled me aside and said, you don't want to do this job. And it changed me forever. I said, what do you mean? She's like, you really want to read other people's words, put on lipstick and read other people's words? I'm just like a puppet. And I said, okay. And I went back that following fall and changed my major to advertising. One person totally changed that for me. Don't know if it was like the right thing to tell me, but it worked. And I'm a very I wouldn't say vulnerable. I would say impressionable person.
Yeah.
I'll get like a bad haircut because I'll go in and they'll say, this is what I think is best for you. And I'll say, I believe you. And this woman looked at me who'd been doing this job and said, get out of this, kid. Trust me. And so I was like, well, I'd rather be the one writing the stuff than the one saying it on camera. So then I changed that. And then my whole goal was to be in advertising and come up with creative advertising campaigns. And I thought at that time in St. Louis, that was like the peak way to show any kind of creative expression would be to write a Coca-Cola commercial. So that's the goal. And then I went to University of Kansas.
Rock Chalk.
Yeah, Rock Chalk is in their journalism program. I used to sleep on the sidewalk to get tickets to basketball games. I loved watching KU basketball. It's the greatest. Yeah, the Fog Allen Fieldhouse is the greatest place ever to see a college football game. If you ever have the opportunity, take it. Anyway, KU journalism major, came out, was in advertising sales, wasn't creative enough for me. Then started, I went to shows at Second City in Chicago, comedy shows, and I thought it like spoke to me immediately. I remember just being with a bunch of friends. I was like New Year's Eve weekend, and we just like, let's go to this improv show at Second City. And at the end of the show, like something just lit up in me. And what I needed more than anything happened, which was all my friends I was sitting with turned to me, all of them, and said, you should be doing that. And again, someone tells me to do something or not do something, I believe them. And thankfully this time I believed them and started taking classes at Second City, loved comedy, wanted to be in comedy, but had absolutely no idea how a girl from St. Louis gets into comedy or comedy writing. And then moved out to LA with an ad sales job, kept doing improv, and then landed at Jimmy Kimmel Live early on, 21 years ago, as the assistant to the executive producer.
How did you land at Jimmy Kimmel?
I was working in ad sales, and a girl in the office said, my friend's friend says they're looking for an assistant to the executive producer at Jimmy Kimmel Live. I had no idea what Jimmy Kimmel Live was. I had no idea who Jimmy Kimmel was, but I applied for the job because it was a way into television. Something interesting. I just want to be out of sales.
Has comedy always been in the mix too? Or was that just was the like Second City experience the aha moment?
The Second City experience was the aha moment.
Or were you funny growing up?
Yes, I was. Yes, I was funny growing up. I used to love watching Saturday Night Live after I'd cleaned the bathrooms in people's houses. I used to love watching Saturday Night Live. And I used to put on like sketches at the high school and be up on stage and make, like, I did an impression of like our gym teacher and things like that. And I loved making people laugh.
Okay, so then you landed Jimmy Kimmel, eventually worked your way up to the writer's room.
Yes.
Just to start, and for baseline for this that don't know, myself included, what does a writer for a late night comedy show do? What does that job look like?
Okay, so I can kind of take you through the day. The job of a late night writer is basically to take in the news of the day and write primarily. First, it's two parts. One, you're writing monologue jokes. You're reading topics that people are talking about, mostly from the daily news, and you're writing jokes to those. And then you're also writing sketches. That could be a fake commercial. That could be, a comedy bit with Jimmy and a celebrity. So you're writing both jokes and sketches, scripted material, like scripted bits. And you're doing that every day. It's very fast turnaround. There's a real high to it. There's also a bit of a low to it, that your highs are high and your lows are low, but they're all very temporary. So you can have a great bit in the monologue. You can celebrate it for a couple of minutes, and then it's time to start thinking about the next day's show. But it's nice because if you have something in the show that didn't go so great, that feeling's all temporary too, and you have another chance tomorrow.
How do you even prepare for the pace of it, though? I mean, that's so full on.
It's full on. It's very anxiety inducing. I still to this day, after writing, I've been in the writer's room, I guess 15 years now. I still to this day will get anxious when I get the news in the morning and I worry, oh my God, do I have anything left in me? Like, is there a single joke left? But you just do. It's weird. I mean, there's we have 19 writers on our show. We have 19. Most late night shows have around the same, up into the 20s. And the good news about a staff that large is that you don't have to be on every day. You still work every day and you contribute, but some days someone else is going to, thank God, have a great idea that we all desperately need. It's a 15-minute monologue. It is written up until the very last minute. And it's changed a lot over the years because with breaking news, that has completely changed the pace of our job. Donald Trump really changed the pace of the job because things were happening at breaking news at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. He was doing and saying truly insane things throughout his administration that our monologue would be in a pretty good position, pretty ready to go because we shoot the show at 4:30. And then around like 2 o'clock, he's in Charlottesville saying there's very fine people on both sides. And that's something we can't ignore. It's all over the media. And we're like the last thing you're seeing at the end of the day. So we got to comment on it. And so we spent so much of our time those 4 years throwing things away and starting over in the afternoon. Like I remember January 6th, like it was yesterday. We were writing and then we watched all of that unfolding on television and we told our writers to stop down because things were about to change. And again, like I have such sympathy for late night writers across the board, Saturday Night Live writers, daily journalists. I like all the cable news people that have to watch all of this, ingest it, and then try to put it out there for the public consumption. Because you're also you're kind of internalizing it yourself. You're watching it. You're having your own human reaction to it. But there's almost no time for that. That comes later in the bathtub or maybe when you're on a podcast and you just break into tears. But yeah, so our job has changed in that it is much more chaotic. It's news is changing so much and we feel a bit of responsibility to cover it.
Yeah, completely. I mean, it's so intense.
And it's strange because a lot of people get their news from comedy shows now, like, which is kind of crazy, but it is very important at our show that we are always factually correct because some people are learning about Donald Trump's cabinet picks from watching our monologue on YouTube. And so we make sure it is factual and then we give you some jokes about it. But it's weird, like The Daily Show, John Oliver, Seth Meyers, Stephen Colbert. I think we're all in kind of the same camp of people are actually learning a lot of things about what's going on from us.
Yeah, I agree with that. Coming to the show yesterday, that was one of the things we talked about was it was like consuming the news. So it's like all the news that I've seen coming into the show.
Yeah.
And then you're writing jokes around that.
Mm-hmm.
Are you able to unplug ever? I feel like if you're a comedy writer, you're constantly just like coming up with bits in your head, but that's what I envision. Is that?
Yes, it's true. I mean, I'll tell you in the summers, Jimmy and I have the summers off and it's really wonderful, but it's also really hard. Like Jimmy will say, God, I wish I was on air tonight, when something crazy happens because your impulse is to respond to it and to have jokes about it. And, you want an audience for that.
Yes.
But, we do unplug. It's brief periods. It's weekends and it's, being at the beach with our kids and reading books and things like that. But then it's right back to it. It's a daily show. We have, summers off. So that's really nice.
I want to touch on writing as a woman, male-dominated field.
Mm-hmm.
Did you feel, did that even enter the equation? Because you talked about the way that you were raised. Did you even think about that or have an awareness of that when you started in the writer's room?
No, I was not aware of it, and nor was I intimidated by it. And I think a lot of that had to do with the way I was raised, but also I went to an all-girls Catholic high school. And that's where I really started to kind of come into my own and figure out who I was. And I think that's where I started to become funny. And I had real value in female friendships. I'm still super close with 9 women that I was 14 years old with, who I still go on a yearly vacation with. I think that was essential to my confidence now and my value in female friendships. So I can be in an all-male room and not be intimidated because I think I was educated around all women and was never threatened by the presence of a man in those years, like those very life-affirming years for me. So I wasn't aware of it. When I got to the show and when I finally got into the writer's room, I did look around and see, oh yeah, I'm one of 2 women. And that was a little intimidating, but not really. Like to me, the most important thing is in that room is, are you smart and are you funny? And I knew I was both of those. So who cares if what I am or who I am?
Well, I mean, it's adding value, if anything.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Did you experience, and I know you did because you've already touched on it, imposter syndrome?
Yes, absolutely. Imposter syndrome immediately.
Uh-huh.
I don't have here's the thing. I don't have imposter syndrome now in my job at the show. I have it when I see other people looking in or asking me about it. I'm like, is this really that interesting to you? Because I'm so used to it and I'm confident in it and I'm good at it. It's the other things outside of there I'll have imposter syndrome. Where if I'm sitting across from another woman with a different kind of career, I'm like, oh, hers is much more interesting than mine. Or when I'm trying to now do something else, like I've been dabbling and trying to write my own thing, I think, oh, I'm really only good at this one thing. Like don't stay in your lane type of an attitude.
That has definitely stood out to us because we have made a career out of celebrating and elevating women's careers.
Yeah.
Nobody thinks what they do is cool. You could have the coolest job in the world, which I would argue you do.
So funny.
And no one sits in their career and thinks, oh, this is incredible. I get to like be with athletes all day, or I get to be with the president all day, or I get to be, I feel like insert whatever job. Yeah. Nobody thinks their job is.
Well, I'm glad I'm in good company then.
Yeah, for what it's worth. Okay, so eventually you'd go on to be the head writer. And what's the difference between being in the writer's room versus being the head writer?
The head writer is kind of the last step between the writing process and the host, Jimmy. So when writers come up with ideas in the day, we're all on the same level. We're all just trying to write jokes and bits and things. But then any bit that gets approved then comes through us first. So the script will come through us. We'll punch it up. We'll either bring it into the room and say, hey, we could use a better ending on this, or what can make this better. Basically, we're the filter before it goes to Jimmy for his final approval on things. And then we're also always looking at the big picture and saying what guests are coming on, who would want to do comedy, what do they need to promote, how can we help them do that in a creative and funny way. Also for us, like the most important thing is the monologue for us, that 15 minutes we're trying to fill. And you always want to end on a strong bit. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't, but we always want to make sure we've got the last few minutes that are kind of planned out and solid. So we're always kind of looking ahead. Like I can already tell you that we have bit monologue closers for like the next 3 nights. They could change, but I know like we pre-plan, we're thinking ahead. And those are like a little more evergreen things that aren't tied to a news topic that day.
And then when does executive producer come in to the mix?
Yeah. So executive producer, I became executive producer a few years ago with 2 of the greatest executive producers, Aaron Irwin and Jen Sharon. We each came from a different field at the show. So Jen oversees the field department. Field department are the producers that make all the bits happen. So our ideas come from the writer's room, and then they go to the field department, and they have the producers with a team of amazing producers who then assign you a director, a graphics team, an editor, wardrobe, casting. You work with them. Erin came more from segment, which is guests, the guest segments, the interviews. There's a long history of that. And then she also oversees like our social media. I came from the writing room. So the 3 of us are kind of the 3-headed executive producer who each are really strong in our areas, but then we also share responsibilities. And we're just kind of keeping the show running together and making sure all these departments are communicating and that we're all kind of have the same goal every day.
Was there a time where you felt intimidated to pitch big ideas, or were you always just ready for like big swings? And at what stage did things like mean tweets enter the equation?
Yeah, I think it's always intimidating, not intimidating, but, risky to put your ideas out there and hope they get approved. Most of them, and every late night writer will tell you this, the majority of your ideas are rejected every day. You have to have incredibly thick skin. Mm-hmm. When I have a good idea, a big idea, I know kind of immediately, and I cannot wait to pitch it. Like I'm pretty confident in the things that I know are going to work. And if I get rejected on something that I'm that excited about, I'll go back and say, I want you to reconsider this idea. And Jimmy will typically do that because if a writer is so willing to repitch something, that means they are that confident and they're not going to bring him like a turd for the show. Mm-hmm. Like then it's like even more pressure for you to make something great if you're pitching it again. So Handsome Men's Club came about, God, I don't even know what year that was. Geez, 2010 or something. Oh God, I should probably go back and look. But that was an idea that I had pitched. And then Jimmy, a few months later, had a similar idea that he pitched. I think maybe it did seeped in. And I oversaw Handsome Men's Club. And I love bits that have multiple moving parts that are really hard to pull off. That's one of the things I absolutely love about live and pre-taped television, those high-risk moments where it could definitely go wrong. It's like the more people you put in it, the more involvement, the more publicists you need to get approval, the harder it is to get done. And I love things like that.
I'm so the same.
Yeah, I love it. Like I love big. Like also to me, like the Oscars when like the envelope thing happened, like that, I love stuff like that.
I forget that was Jimmy.
Oh yeah, that was Jimmy. I was sitting, we were, Jimmy was we were supposed to go to Jimmy, who was sitting next to Matt Damon in the audience. And we were going to close out the show with a joke between Jimmy and Matt Damon. And they're sitting there together. We have cameras on them because they're right after Best Picture, the speech, the show was over and we were going to come to Jimmy. And I'm backstage. I watched that happen on the monitor. And I thought, oh my God, people are going to think this is a Jimmy prank. Like that was the first thing that came to my mind because he's the host. I was like, they're going to think this is a bit, like this is a joke. Like this is, no one knows what's happening. No one knows how this just happened. And then my next thought was like, how do we get to Jimmy? Because Jimmy needs to be on stage right now. Like that's where you really want a host of these shows. I know sometimes they've gone hostless. I think that's a major mistake. I think when you're watching a collective event like that, you need to have a through line. You need to have someone in there that can kind of be the voice of everybody and making us all kind of experience it together. But I was grateful we had a host for that show, and it was Jimmy because then he ran up on stage and tried to kind of explain it and make it funny. But I love moments like those. I love them. Jimmy does too. Thrives in those moments.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's why you're in the jobs that you're in.
Yeah.
You know? I feel like working with a spouse comes up a lot. Dave is at Argent. He's the head of marketing. People are either all for it or completely against it. Yeah. Yours is a little bit unique because you worked together before you were together.
Yeah.
But I also think
there's highly recommend it.
So anyone looking for a spouse?
Oh, young ladies, you should try to date your boss. Super smart.
What is that dynamic been like? But I feel like you've already touched on it too, though. There's a level of trust there, I would imagine.
Yes. So we started dating after I had already worked there for, I think, 10 years, 8 years. I don't remember. I'm really bad at math. I was a journalism major, remember? And I think one of the things why it works, two things. One, I have very thick skin because remember, I'm getting rejected every day, but now it's by my husband. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which everyone else gets to be rejected by him and then they get to go to their spouse and complain about him. But that is my spouse. So sometimes I get rejected. My ideas get rejected and then I have to not take it home with me because I don't think that's fair to him. I don't think it's fair to me. I'm very good at compartmentalizing. There are definitely moments where I get home. Like I remember one time having a bit idea. It was shortly after like Roe v. Wade was whispered to be, remember that memo came out or was
yes.
it? Yeah. And I wanted to do something on it and he didn't put it in the show. Had nothing to do with the subject matter and everything to do with like, we already had too much stuff in the monologue and that's something we could revisit later. But I was incredibly emotional about that and brought it home and just got really upset. I've never been like mad at him before like that about the show. Like who cares? But I remember being angry with him and he was incredibly compassionate and said, let's figure something else out. Like, this obviously is an important topic to you and our audience, so we'll figure it out. But working with my husband, I think is also wonderful because especially right now, like feeling like we're on the same team with the same goal, there's such comfort in that. And I've got like my best friend and I are working every day to make something great that we're proud of. And he inspires me like nobody else. Like I don't know how he has continued to do what he's done.
Yeah.
And I just look at him in awe. And I just think it's a beautiful relationship that we have, that we can do that together. And then we get to go home and it's totally different at home as I imagine it is with you guys. Like work is work and home is home. There's no boss at home. I mean, it might be me, but you know what I mean? Yeah.
You know, like obviously.
Yeah. Let's be honest. Women run the world. But no, I think it's actually miraculously worked out really well for us. It was definitely risky to date the boss. That was not at all what I had in mind for my life. And he was always so comfortable with it. And I said, well, of course you're comfortable with it because you're in the position of power. It's easy for you. If this doesn't work out, I have to get a whole new job. You keep your job. I don't. And he was very at ease with it. And he just said, it's going to be fine. And then sure enough, here we are married for 11 years, 2 kids and still working together. And it's gone really well.
It's for me and Dave, I would say I'm not as good at not bringing it home.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I'll take tips on that at some point. But
I think it's mostly because I'm just too tired. I'm like, I've been at work all day and I don't want to talk about work anymore. That might be it.
Yeah, but I think it is like we divide and conquer. I feel like it's similar for y'all. We're like we're opposites, so we just cover different things and we come together in a way that makes sense. But it's nice to have someone that you trust, like doing the work that in a way that's better than you could ever imagine.
Yeah,
doing
isn't
it.
that nice? Like the person doing that job is someone you trust.
Yeah,
like
it's
no
necessary.
One else. Yes.
Well, I think trust is so important at work. Like for building Argent, who is involved is maybe the most important thing. So getting people, and this takes time, and it's taken a lot of time. We've had the wrong people, and you have to learn the hard way a lot of times. But getting the right people that are enhancing your vision, is the dream.
Agreed. There's nothing better than when you find that combination.
I'm curious to know if there are any other segments or what are the highlights for you.
I would say mean tweets is probably my highlight.
Yeah,
Getting Barack Obama to read a mean tweet was my dream. Like after that bit became popular, everyone would ask me like, who have you not gotten on mean tweets? And I just kept saying, I know it's a pipe dream, but I would love for Barack Obama to read mean tweets. And then sure enough, like 3 or 4 years after that bit started, he came in and we did a whole Obama edition of it. And I just felt like I had died and gone to heaven. I remember thinking like, if this is the last thing I ever do, I'll be fine.
Yeah. I mean, it's unreal. You are on the show sometimes and you've spoken to probably the issues that you care the most about.
Yes.
How does that come about? Is that your idea or does that come from the writer's room or how?
Sometimes other people have pitched me to be on the show when I have gone on talking about reproductive freedom, which was twice I pitched myself because I needed a place to put my feelings. And I was writing it all for Jimmy and that felt hypocritical. I thought a woman should be delivering this. Although obviously men should be advocating for women. But I also just felt like I wanted a woman to speak to the women's issues on his show. And he was generous enough to say, yes, take a few minutes of my monologue and speak to it. Yeah. And I think he was grateful for me to do that because he felt like it should come from a woman as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's helpful to come from both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I also do silly things. Like I get rid of his crap on the show, which is so fun because he has too much stuff and I love getting rid of it. And I just give it away to people on Hollywood Boulevard. And there's nothing that feels better than that.
I didn't even think about the funny ones like the middle of the night. What's that series called?
Oh, yes. I've had Rihanna and several other pop stars wake Jimmy up dancing on our bed. Dua Lipa, Mariah Carey, Britney Spears. Those are fun.
The one that was on yesterday was like best of was Who's the Father of Your Baby?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
I love Matt Damon.
It's such a good throwback.
I love him so much.
And then beyond the show, and we've touched on the Oscars, you've written for the White House Correspondents' Dinner, the Emmys, the Oscars.
Yes.
How are those writing and producing jobs different than your day-to-day job?
I would say the biggest difference is time. The Daily Show, you wake up and you write material that morning that goes on air that night. With the Emmys and the Oscars, you have months. Like we have months to write jokes and material. It's fun. I also like it's different because it's typically not political at all. It's a little more lighthearted, a little less edgy. I wouldn't say less edgy, but it's less weight to an Oscar joke than a political joke. And it's also fun because you watch all these movies and then just try to make jokes about them. But I would say there's a much more pressure. Like the real estate of a Oscar monologue I would say it's almost like in the nicest neighborhood where you got to make every joke work. It's a huge audience and it's an international audience and people now are ready to tear you apart. They are ready. Everyone is home ready to criticize everything now. And when you have all eyes on something that you're doing, it's imperative that the jokes are kind of perfect. And so we have months and months and months to write those things and we craft and rewrite. And we have like 9 different versions of those monologues before we select what we're going to put on. And it's fun because those shows have more than just the host involved in that you have a room full of the biggest names in the industry. You're you're like watching them laugh at something you write feels really special, but also knowing that people at home are on their couches and they're laughing, like you're pleasing two audiences at once. It feels really special. And it's just like I think award shows are one of the last kind of communal television watching experiences. And it still can feel warm and fuzzy. And I love watching people win awards that have never won awards before. I remember last year, like crying when some editor won, that I was like, who is this guy? And he's up there thanking his mom. And I'm just crying. And like, there's real emotion in those evenings. I know it can seem vain and stupid, but I also think there's all these thousands of hardworking people behind every television show and movie. And when they get celebrated like that, I think it's really special.
Even the community on like just being at the show last night, you can just see it's very familial.
Yes.
I imagine for an award show, it's just that, times however many people that takes to staff that.
Yeah.
It bonds you.
Right.
That's how it feels. Have you had any big like, oh no, or failures that you've been a part of?
Yeah. I would say, there's always like bits that are duds. But I'll say one, like this wasn't my idea, but I wish I had stopped it. And that was Jimmy challenged Ted Cruz to play basketball.
Oh, yep.
And he lost.
Yep. Yep.
I remember him. I don't even honestly like how it came about. I think Ted Cruz challenged Jimmy and Jimmy said, okay, I want to do that. And I said, whoa. No, you're not playing Ted Cruz in basketball. That's ridiculous. My worry was not that Jimmy would lose. That never even occurred to me. My worry was like, at the time in Texas, they're separating children from their mothers. He was a vital part in that. And I said, why are we going to play a game with a guy who's doing some pretty dark stuff right now? And Jimmy said, well, maybe this can help bring attention to that and like get the conversation going. And we do need right and left to be talking. And also I'm going to humiliate him. I'm going to kill him. And then Jimmy, like he was practicing. He did like one basketball game like the week before, and he like hurt his hamstring and then was really hurting throughout that whole game. And it was, to me, to this day, still the darkest moment of my career. Just sitting in some stadium in Texas watching Ted Cruz beat Jimmy in basketball. That was a rough day for me.
In fairness, Ted Cruz wasn't as terrible at basketball as I would have expected.
No, he also played real dirty. Like if there were fouls being called,
obviously,
that would have been a different game. Yeah, of course he played dirty, but yeah, he wasn't great, but he was, I guess, a little better than Jimmy that day. It was rough. That was truly the saddest I've ever been.
I watched that too. I remember that vividly. It's like 2018, 2017.
That sounds about right. I remember wearing a Every Town t-shirt to it and hoping that would change the world.
Your career is nuts. Like it's just the embodiment of work friends. It's hard work and some getting the right advice from your friends. But it's a very different landscape now. I think everything's changing so rapidly. So what advice do you have for someone who wants your career that's just starting out?
A few things. Overall, I would just say, like, be the friend to yourself that you would be to someone else. And I can sit with any woman and tell her, oh my God, go for it, do it. You're smart. You should absolutely be doing that. When it comes to myself, I fill my head with doubt and I tell myself, you can't, someone else can do it better. And that's not true. And I think that every woman needs to be the type of friend to herself that she would be to her best friend. Secondly, if you want to get into comedy, I'm sorry to say this if you've wasted a lot of money on higher education, but it doesn't matter where you went to school. It doesn't matter what extracurriculars, really. Like, no one's looking at a resume for comedy writing. Just keep writing. Find your voice. Don't try to make your voice someone else's. Because, like, our goal every day at our show is obviously to write in Jimmy's voice. But it's very important for Jimmy to have a variety of voices on his staff. You know, like straight men, gay men, white men, black men, white women, black women. Like, it's very important that we're all represented in this show. And I think that just be true to yourself. Don't try to conform to be someone else's type of comedy, because that's already out there. Be yourself. And it's the simplest advice, but just keep writing. It's like exercise. You just have to keep doing it to get stronger. If you want to be a joke writer, I used to always go on Twitter to find great joke writers because that's back when Twitter was for fun and levity.
Blue sky, baby.
Yeah. Blue sky or wherever you want to go, post material. Do it with, to me, like build in a repetition of writing. Like get up in the morning and decide you're going to just write jokes for 10 minutes every morning. And they're going to stink for a long time, but they will get better in time. So I would just say repetition and being a friend to yourself.
I think the rejection piece too, it's like confidence rejection are also themes that come up a lot. I cannot tell you how many times I've been told no. But it's the idea that you talked about where it's like you have these huge like pie in the sky ideas.
Yeah.
And generally for me, it comes together in a way that I'm happy and it's not necessarily the big idea that I pitched, but I just feel like rejection and getting used to rejection is so necessary, especially with something as personal as writing, because that really is, it's so vulnerable.
Yeah. This sounds cheesy, but I've had to just say to myself, like after rejection or being let down, I just say, thank you for the gift. Thank you for the gift. Like it is a gift. It will make sense later. Every rejection, every heartbreak is getting you on the path for the thing that's going to fit or work. I truly believe that.
Well, and I think for women too, we endure so much more rejection because we're operating within a patriarchy. And so our ideas are dismissed. Other people take credit for them. The list goes on and on and on. And I actually think that like building up your tolerance for rejection and having confidence to keep going is what it's all about. And how many times can we like get slapped in the face and yet still just show up and keep going? But your perspective, the female point of view in every room is so important. So I just think that that's like a consistent theme that we've seen.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to loop back on is in this moment in time, which is heavy.
Yeah.
We're all kind of still coming out of this and trying to get our arms around what we do from here. The thing that I am finding hope in is seeing the women in our community like yourself that are doing such important work. I cannot overstate how important the work you all are doing is. And how exposed you are personally as a result of doing this work. But that's what it's going to take from all of us to protect our democracy, but also our gender. Like our gender is very much under attack.
Yes.
But I do think that there is this resolve in women and this commitment to ensure that our place and our contribution is recognized. Because, I mean, look at your time during COVID. You're running the show. The show doesn't exist in the way that it exists without you. And I can point to so many examples of women like that are doing so much work that maybe isn't in front of the camera, but that's behind the scenes and necessary. So that's where I'm finding hope right now. I'm very grateful for all the work you guys are doing.
Oh, that's nice. Thank you. I feel the same about you.
Oh, thanks.
Like when I saw you last night, I wanted to just cry because I'm crying all the time because I'm perimenopausal and post-election. But I feel this like there's this invisible like linking of arms with women right now. And it feels really empowering and important and necessary for us to keep moving. It means so much to be a part of your world and to like be acknowledged in your world because I have such mutual respect for you and you inspire me and you give me hope. And there's many other women that we know that are giving us the same feelings. Like, please don't give up because I can't give up and you can't give up and we have to just keep moving together. So thank you for moving with me.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that's sort of what's really stood out to me is that all of the progress that we've made and all of the hope that we had, none of that goes away. None of that can be taken away.
Right.
We are so much closer to gender equity than this administration like wants you to think.
Yes.
And I do think that like it's going to be a continued and sustained fight, but all that progress just isn't going to disappear.
I do have hope.
And despair.
I'll say
deep, dark despair.
Say I have hope. Like it's like a whispered hope.
Yes. Yeah.
It's like I have hope.
Well, I do. I think like the way that women coalesced around Kamala in a way that we weren't able to for Hillary, that's new and that's good and positive. The thing that I've observed in the last few years is that women are talking about ambition, money, investment in a way that we've never done before. Women have access to, we're responsible for 80% of consumer spending.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of power that we have that we don't necessarily recognize. And I think that this outcome is a slap in the face to have a heightened assertiveness around what we're going to do with that power.
Mm-hmm. I just keep hoping and praying that it's just the pendulum and it's it went to the absolute extreme and it only has one way to go now. We got to come back the other way. It's going to be rough for a while, but I do have hope that this cannot sustain. It just can't.
Yeah.
We just can't live in this for a long period of time.
Yeah.
And I hope that everything people voted for becomes very apparent very quickly. And that's going to hurt to witness. But I hope that it is so obviously the wrong direction that we have no place to go but the other direction.
Mm-hmm.
I hope. Hope.
Hope.
Oh, okay. Hope.
Hope. Okay, now a light game of Would You Rather.
Mm-hmm. Love it.
Are you ready?
Yes.
I actually don't look at these and they're new, and so I'm excited to do them with
fun.
you.
Okay.
Would you rather write on, this one doesn't apply to me really, write on a tight deadline or with an open deadline?
Tight deadline. Because I'm a procrastinator and I'll just make it a tight deadline no matter what. So just give me a tight deadline.
I agree with that, even though I'm not a writer. Would you rather go back to school to learn a new skill or teach what you know to a class of newcomers?
Oh, I'd like to learn a new skill. That might sound selfish, but I would like to learn a new skill. I don't know what that skill is, but I love to learn.
Don't you think you'd be an excellent master class though?
I would.
I know. Yes. I know.
I would, but I also feel like a lot of other people can do that, and I'd just rather be selfish.
I want to learn a new skill from you in the master class.
Okay, fine. You can come to my class.
Would you rather only answer emails with emojis or only answer calls on FaceTime?
Ooh. Only emojis. I could do a whole book. I could write a whole book in emojis.
Only answer calls on FaceTime.
FaceTime, no thanks. I don't even like just talking on the phone, period, I don't like. And then adding the face, even worse.
Oh, that surprises me.
I hate talking on the phone.
I love talking on the phone.
You do?
I'll call people that I haven't talked to. I would call you so randomly.
I'd screen you immediately, right to voicemail.
I had one investor one time that answered and she goes, "Is everything okay? Do we have a planned meeting right now that I forgot to put on my calendar?" I was like, "No, I'm just
you just called to chat." Oh yeah, I wouldn't pick up.
Oh,
sorry.
I'm going to test that.
Yeah,
I'm going to test that.
You know, weirdly though, I'd rather Zoom with you. I guess that's FaceTime. But I wouldn't want it to be unexpected. It needed to be planned.
I like the impromptu, I've got a question.
Yeah.
I got to do it.
I'd rather have lunch with you 3 times a year and never talk to you on the phone. I'd rather have nice, valuable catch-ups.
Yeah.
And then a couple texts in between.
Yeah, yeah. So if I have an urgent question, I need to text you first.
I live on text. Text me anytime. I'll get right back to you.
Oh, mine's going to be.
Don't you dare call me.
Mine's going to be, can you hop on a call?
Yeah, right. That's the worst.
Would you rather start a career in comedy writing in the 90s or in the present day?
Oh, that is a great question. I think my impulse says 90s, but also there's a lot more opportunity today. There's so many more shows. So I think today.
Do you get annoyed by people being it writes itself?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't write itself.
Mm-hmm.
No, it doesn't. Also, people love to tell me some wacky story from their life. And they say, no, you can put that in the show. I'm like, we won't. It has nothing to do with our show or the monologue.
I have a similar pet peeve where people give me product feedback.
Oh, I bet that's fun.
You can design this jacket I have. I'm like, that's okay. Nope. I'll think about it.
Yeah.
Would you rather write a great piece of feedback or receive a great piece of feedback?
Receive a great piece of feedback.
Same.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be the person though that writes the great piece.
Yeah.
Would you rather dress up or
By the way, I could totally do that. I'd love to give feedback, but
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like I'd be much more valuable to get it myself.
Yeah. Honest. Would you rather dress up or dress down for work? This is a test, Molly.
Up. I dress down for work. I work in a writer's room. I wear tennis shoes every day.
You don't dress. You look great yesterday.
Yeah, I wear flats, jeans, and occasionally I'll look nice. And I really like to dress up, but it feels out of if I get dressed, if I go into work right now wearing this suit, people go, "Ooh, where are you going? What are you doing?" I would like this to
Where
be
are you
the norm.
interviewing?
Yeah. Yeah. Who died or where are you interviewing?
Would you rather accidentally leave your mic unmuted or your camera on?
Oh, camera on. Because words could bury you, but
Same.
an on makeup face, you'll be fine.
Huma said mic unmuted, which I think tells me that she's not talking shit. Everybody else camera on.
Really?
So Huma doesn't
she's a
talk
better
poorly
person than
of
us.
others.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Would you rather write for an award show or win at an award show?
Oh, win an award show. Yeah. I would like just shove Ryan Gosling out of the way and grab an Oscar. Yeah, for sure. I would love to win an award. That'd be fun.
I want to do it all over again though. You're the coolest.
You're the best. I love being here. Sorry, I cried at the beginning. Although, you know what? I'm not sorry.
I'm not. That was
Women
my Oprah moment.
I'm not going to apologize for
that was my
emotions.
Oprah moment. Don't you say that when
you're Barbara Walters now. You're the new Barbara Walters. I cried within 3 minutes of being interviewed by you.
I've hit a new high as a podcaster.
Yes. Am I the only person who's cried on your podcast?
Oh, I don't know.
I love it. I should get some kind of an award.
Yeah.
I need like a patch for my jacket.
We'll come up with something for you to receive very publicly.
I'm not going to, yeah, that would be my award.
Molly, I love you a lot.
I love you a lot.
I'm very happy to be in this fight with you.
Me too.
But also, you're the coolest.
At least we look good while we're fighting. Thanks to you.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
It's our armor.
Yes, that's right.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for having us last night. Thank you for everything. But most importantly, thank you for the work that you do. It is important in a way that I think we'll understand when our kids are adults. You know, I think we recognize that it's important now, but hindsight will be 20/20, and you're certainly on the right side of history.
Thank you very much. But I think what you do is incredibly important. A couple months ago, I assume you remember this. I had a breast cancer scare, and I was going in to get a biopsy. And I typically, going to biopsy, I started putting on jeans and tennis shoes. And then I stopped myself and I reached into the closet and I found this beautiful pink Argent suit. And I put it on with a silk camisole, and I still wear tennis shoes, by the way. But I felt powerful in wearing your clothing. And I felt really connected that this female-run brand was on me as I was going in to get a biopsy to determine whether or not I had breast cancer. And I took a picture of myself in the suit and I sent it to you. And you were one of 3 people who knew I had this cancer scare, and you learned it through your suit. And I just think it's really beautiful what your brand is doing, and it makes women feel empowered and strong. And it's weird that has like subconsciously seeped in with these clothes. So thank you for what you do. It's very important.
Oh, that's unbelievable. Oh my God. It so speaks to though, like that we're all in community. And I feel like we've never been prioritized. Like it's very obvious that like investment hasn't gone into women's health. Investment doesn't go into women. Women aren't thought of when it comes to like designing clothing even.
Right.
Because we're an easy target and we don't work like according to fashion executives.
Right.
So thanks for just letting us be a part of that moment.
Absolutely.
Among other very cool career
Thanks for being there with me. I feel like you were wrapped around me. It was nice.
Oh,
thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I love you.
Yeah, I love you too. It's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
Thanks for listening to Work Friends, a podcast from Argent. Listen and follow on all podcast platforms and subscribe to the Argent YouTube channel for more clips and bonus content. Plus, email your work questions and dilemmas at workfriends@argentwork.com for a chance to have one of our amazing guests weigh in with advice. I'm Sally Christensen, and we'll see you next time.
Work Friends.
Work Friends is produced by Gina Marinelli with editing by Justin Kropp. Our theme music is by Karina De Piano and Melanie Naima.